On this video, we are going to compare two of the biggest fintech stocks, Square stock versus PayPal stock. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll find out which stock you want to invest in, if any, or maybe even both. Now, odds are if you're watching this video, you probably do most of your shopping through digital payments, whether that be online or in the store. And that's because the war on cash is real. There's definitely a war on cash right now, and these two stocks are benefiting from that greatly. And if anything, this pandemic is only increasing that, because now more than ever, more people are shopping online and less people want to accept or transfer cash from person to person, meaning that digital payments are on the rise and cash is looking less and less favorable. Now, with all that being said, let's get into this video. Let's go! Welcome back to the We Are Investing channel, a channel that is dedicated in investing and personal finance. If you're new to this channel, we do things a little bit differently. Before we head into the stock review, we do a beer review. Yup, on this channel, we try to combine the finer things in life, beer and stocks. So if either of those things interest you, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell, and smashing that like button. It goes a long way in helping this channel grow, and I really do appreciate it. Also, I recently started a Patreon account that is probably the best way to support this channel. Now, for every 1,000 subs that we get on the We Are Investing channel, I'm going to be doing a stock giveaway. At 3,000, I gave $25 for VOO, which is a Vanguard ETF that follows the S&P 500. At 4,000 subs, I will be giving away another $25 towards a stock. And if you're a Patreon member, the chances of you winning that giveaway are increased. And then one last thing before we head into the video, let me know down in the comments below which stock you preferred before you watched this video. Was it Square stock or was it PayPal? Now, for today's beer, we got a Brew Free or Die 21st Amendment Brewery. This is a blood orange IPA. Obviously, this beer has a taste of blood orange. The ABV on this bad boy is 7%. So it's probably gonna pack a good punch. But anyways, let's try this bad boy out. Let's give this blood orange IPA from Brew Free or Die. Man, oh, that is good. Oh man, no, really good. All right, definitely check this beer out if you have a chance. All right, now it's time for those tipsy topics. Tipsy topic number one, the business segment. What exactly are you investing in if you invest in Square or PayPal? Tipsy topic number two, the financials. Which company is performing better? That is what we're going to find out in tipsy topic number two. Tipsy topic number three, the balance sheet. Which company is better positioned when it comes to assets versus liabilities, when it comes to cash versus debt? Tipsy topic number four, the valuation. We are going to look at the valuations for these two companies and compare them against each other. Tipsy topic number five, the technicals. What are the charts telling us about these two stocks? And what might be a good entry point for both of these companies? And then the last tipsy topic is the We Are Investing wind down. Which company do I like better? Am I invested in either of these? Do I plan to invest in either of them? All that and more in the We Are Investing wind down. Tipsy topic number one, what are the businesses for Square and PayPal? Now, these companies are a lot alike, so some of the businesses are the same, but there are differences between the two companies. Now, starting off with Square stock, we got the hardware and the software. Chances are if you shopped at a mom and pop business, you probably used a Square device to complete your transaction. You might be familiar with them. They connect to your phone, to your iPad, or they might be an individual device that you use to make the transaction. Those devices also come with software. So that is one business segment for Square. Square also has Cash App, which is that peer-to-peer payment app. Now, this app also has the ability to buy Bitcoin and stock. Square also has their Caviar business, which is a food ordering platform. And Square also has Square Capital, which is a loan business. They give out loans through their Square Capital. Now, these loans aren't huge and they're usually used for small businesses, but that is something that they have within the company. Now, when you look at PayPal, you have the PayPal Payment Solutions. When you buy something online, there's usually an option to use PayPal to complete the transaction. That is the PayPal Payment Solutions. Now, PayPal also has PayPal Credit, which extends a line of credit out to its users. And then PayPal also has Venmo, which is their peer-to-peer payments application. This is very similar to Cash App, but you cannot buy Bitcoin or stocks on Venmo. Now, PayPal itself also has a peer-to-peer payment method, but Venmo is definitely the more popular option within the PayPal business. Moving on to tipsy topic number 2, the financials. So Square stock had a 2020 quarter 2 revenue of $1.92 billion. They had a 2019 fiscal year revenue of $4.71 billion. They had a 2020 quarter 2 net income of negative $11.48 million. They were not profitable in Q2 of 2020, but they were profitable in the fiscal year of 2019. Their net income was $375 million. And that actually was the first year that Square stock was profitable. Now, the 5-year revenue compound annual growth rate is 41% for Square stock. Now, for PayPal stock, you have a Q2 of 2020 revenue of $5.26 billion, a 2019 fiscal year revenue of $17.77 billion, a 2020 quarter 2 net income of $1.53 billion, which was actually up from $823 million the same quarter the prior year, which is an 86% increase in revenue. Now, for 2019, the net income was $2.46 billion. This company is also profitable, and the 5-year compound annual growth rate for revenue is 17% for PayPal stock. Now, when you look at the financials for both companies, you can see that PayPal is the bigger company by a decent amount. But Square stock is more your growth stock. They have been growing revenues by over 40% the last 5 years, but the increase in quarter 2 revenue for PayPal at 86% is definitely something that investors are liking. And that probably has to do with the pandemic and so many more transactions being online. Moving on to tipsy topic number 3, the balance sheet. Now, for Square stock has $2.69 billion in cash and cash equivalents. They also have current assets of $6.19 billion, current liabilities of $3.63 billion, total assets of $7.81 billion, total liabilities of $5.89 billion. The current ratio, which is the current assets over the current liabilities, is 1.71. That is a good ratio. The total ratio, which is the total assets over total liabilities, is 1.32. Also a good ratio. And the cash over the current liabilities ratio is 74%, meaning that this company, if they use all of their cash and cash equivalents, they could pay down 74% of their current liabilities. Now, for PayPal stock, the cash is $13.05 billion. That is a lot of cash that this company has. Their current assets are $46.5 billion. The current liabilities are $33.73 billion. The total assets are $63.17 billion. Total liabilities at $45.53 billion. The current ratio is 1.38. The total ratio is 1.39. And the cash over the current assets is 0.39%. Now, both of these balance sheets are pretty good if you ask me. PayPal has more cash on hand, but they also have more liabilities, and the ratios are actually favorable for Square stock. But either way, I think the balance sheets for both of these companies are pretty good. Moving on to tipsy topic number 4, the valuations for this company. Now on this slide, we're going to look at a couple multiples. We're going to look at price to earnings ratio. We're going to look at enterprise value over EBITDA. We're going to look at price to sales, price to book, and price to cash flow. Now for PE non-GAAP forward looking, Square has a PE ratio of 283.5, while PayPal has a PE ratio of 52.8. The EV over EBITDA is 211.5 for Square and 37.59 for PayPal. The price to sales ratio is pretty close between the two. It's 9.2 for Square and 10.8 for PayPal. The price to book ratio is 34 for Square and 11.3 for PayPal. And the price to cash flow is 125 for Square and 32.6 for PayPal. Now, when you look at this chart, you can see that the valuations are in favor of PayPal. But you have to keep in mind that Square stock is more of a growth stock. And with growth stocks, you always see higher multiples. That is very common in the stock market. However, we can look at the 5-year average for some of these multiples to see how the stock at the current valuation compares to its 5-year average. That could be a good way to see if a stock is overvalued or undervalued compared to its average over the last 5 years. Now, the average PE value for Square is not applicable because Square wasn't profitable until last year. So we can't look at the 5-year average because price to earnings ratio requires that the company is profitable. It needs to have a positive earnings per share. However, for PayPal, the average PE ratio is 45.2. And in order for PayPal to have that valuation today, you would need to have a share price of $170. Now, the average price to book ratio for Square is 15.3. That requires a share price of $80 for Square, and the average price to book value for PayPal is 5.3. That requires a share price of $180. Now, the average price to sales ratio for Square is 6, and that requires a share price of $130. For PayPal, the average is 6.6, and that requires a price target of $120. Now, the reason why I have price to earnings ratio highlighted for PayPal is because that is the favorable multiple to use for a company that has been profitable consistently. And the reason why I have price to sales ratio used for Square is because that is a multiple that can be used when a company is not profitable. But once a company is profitable consistently, the price to sales ratio could be a little bit off. So that valuation is typically used for companies that are not profitable and have not shown consistent profitability. Moving on to the next tipsy topic, the technicals. Now, if you look at this chart, you can see Square stock, which is in the red and green candles, and then you can see how it compares to PayPal stock, which is the blue line. And you can see that both of these companies have been performing really well, but Square stock has been performing a little bit better, especially over the last couple months, where Square stock really increased in value. However, if you're an investor in either one of these companies, you have been performing really well. Now, when we look at the technicals just for Square stock, and what I did here is I took the all-time high before the pandemic, and that is the red line that you see cut across most of the screen. And then I took the Fibonacci retracements from that line to the all-time highs. And what I'm saying here is that I want to see around a 50% decrease from that all-time high. Because right now, I think the valuation for these two companies is just too high. And I wanted to see where that 50% retracement would put us at. And it just happens to be that that 50% retracement is at around where this stock would be valued fairly compared to its 5-year average. We said for Square stock to hit that price to sales ratio of its 5-year average, the stock would need to be traded at $130. Now, I also identified a couple levels of support. If you look at the charts, you can see that the stock kind of bounced between $125 and $135 a couple times, meaning that $135 would be the first level of support, and if it happens to drop below $135, the next potential level of support would be $125. And given that I can identify levels of support in the charts, and it also corresponds to a fair valuation for the price to sales ratio, that would be my ideal entry point for Square stock. Now moving on to PayPal stock. If you look at the charts for PayPal stocks, it is very similar, and I did the same process because these two companies kind of trade together. Now the 50% retracement for PayPal stock would be $163.24. And very similar to Square stock, just above that 50% retracement line, I am identifying a level of support. This stock kind of traded sideways for a little bit between $165 and $175. Now, like we said before in this video, PayPal stock would need to be $170 to have a price to earnings ratio that matched its 5-year average. And that happens to also correspond to the levels of support that I am identifying, meaning that my ideal entry point for PayPal would be around $165 to $175. And that leads us to our last and final tipsy topic, the we are investing wind down. Now, personally, I think that both of these stocks are good investments, but at the current levels, I would not invest in either Square or PayPal. Now, if I had to choose a company, I would probably choose Square, just because I am younger and I am willing to take on more risk. I definitely think that Square is the riskier pick between the two, but I also think that Square has a higher potential reward. Now, the risk with Square is that they are tied to mom and pop businesses. That is a huge part of their business. And if those businesses do not do well and they close down or whatever the case may be, which is definitely hard for them right now with the pandemic, then that hurts Square's stock. Whereas PayPal is pretty much all online and they are a huge company and you can't go wrong with that kind of company. So either of them, like I said, are good companies. I just think that with Square stock, you might get a better reward. But either way, both companies are fine. And what I will probably end up doing is when these companies reach those levels, I am going to invest in both of them, but I will invest a little bit more in Square. So with that being said, that wraps it up for this video. If you guys like this video and the content that I am providing, please consider hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell, and smashing that like button. Also, check out that Patreon account. A link to the Patreon is provided in the video description. But with all that being said, it's a wrap. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. And this is We Are Investing, and together we are invincible. See ya!